You are the person that you talk to the most throughout your life. Our internal dialogue, the things we say to ourselves, are more impactful than anything we hear from anyone else because we're always talking to ourselves. Our brain is always in that dialogue. So I'm going to talk to you today about the four things to stop saying to yourself about money. So, hi, it's John, and instead of talking about how certain financial products or how money works, things like compound interest, the rule of 72, I have other videos about that. I want to talk to you today, just real quickly, in 10, 15, 20 minutes at the most, about the things that we need to stop saying to ourselves about money because they're just not true. We're conditioned, maybe we're taught these by our parents, by people that are important to us when we're younger, but then that dialogue starts in our mind. And until we stop telling ourselves these things about money, we're going to continue doing the same things, right? Thoughts lead to actions, action leads to habits, habits lead to results, and those results reinforce our thoughts. Have to break that chain. So we're going to jump right into it, right? The first thing to stop telling yourself about money is that you don't deserve money. You do deserve money. You deserve to be compensated for the value that you bring, the skills that you have, the unique person you are. Obviously, our society values people differently for different things. If you've been watching the news, this is going to date the video, so it may not be evergreen, but Jeff Bezos just got remarried over the weekend, and it was an elaborate wedding. I think they shut down part of Venice. Now there's a backlash about it. I'm not saying we all deserve the kind of money that Jeff Bezos has made by creating Amazon or, Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, even Warren Buffett investing for all those years. But we deserve money. We deserve to be able to live. We deserve to be able to have the things that we, desire within reason. The ability to invest money to help other businesses or to loan money or to give money to charity, right? And I'll talk about that more in just a second. But, if you're bringing value to the marketplace, you deserve to be compensated. And you can do, there's in the book The Go Giver, there's a great illustration about a lady who was a school teacher, was very good at teaching school, but school teachers don't get compensated. And she increased the impact that her teaching methods have. It created a very successful business. That's just one example. And that, it's a story, but it's true that sometimes having to find how to apply our value to a larger audience makes us deserving of more money. But you deserve money. There's nothing wrong with saying, I want to get compensated for what I do. I want to get paid for what I do. Uh, and that leads, because a lot of that first thought comes from this thought that money is evil, right? Money is not evil. Money is a thing, it is a tool. It's just like saying a hammer is evil because you can beat somebody with it, or a gun is evil because you can shoot somebody with it. What if you said a car is evil because a friend of mine was hurt or even killed? I had friends that were killed in car accidents that weren't their fault. Does that make cars evil? Should I get rid of my car? I have to have my car. Well, I don't really have motorcycles, so that's a whole separate topic. But saying money is evil is ascribing to the thing what some people do either for money or with their money. So money in and of itself is simply a tool, and it's a way to trade. We can't carry around our product all the time and barter. We can't wire, if I'm a farmer and I want to sell you my produce, well, I can't wire that produce to, the other side of the world to buy something that I want from a manufacturer there. Or I can't, I could give some of it to someone for doing work for me. But, how do we value that? How do we say, well, an hour of an electrician's time, is it worth an hour of my farming time? So I give them, one whatever the produce and how many hours I put into that, where I develop skill. So money is a way to value that. It's a tool. The other thing is money does make it easier to transact, right? It's easier to pay somebody or wire somebody or Venmo somebody money instead of having to carry around everything. Money is a way to for good or for bad, value things in our current economy where something that used to be valuable, one example is aluminum used to be the most valuable metal because it took so much energy to separate aluminum from bauxite. But now aluminum is so cheap, we make cans out of it that we should recycle, and most of the time we don't. But we ascribe the value of aluminum because it took so much energy to produce it. We used money to do that. And so money in and of itself is a thing. It's a tool. It's something that eases other parts of our life, but it doesn't have a moral value. Now, can it? Now, one thing money does do is it highlights values that we already have. And this is where you see that there are people that don't have a lot of money that are very greedy, and there are people that have a lot of money that are very charitable. And I mean, like they're right now, Gates and Buffett are perfect examples. Their goal is to have already given the money and the skills and the values training to their children, their offspring, and then give all of the rest of their money away, right? Both of them believe to, you take care of your family, but they don't want to say that our children have won a genetic lottery and should live a life of leisure, that they should earn a lot of their own way. So, it shows the values of someone, but it doesn't have the values itself. So money in and of itself is not evil. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil, not money is the root of all evil, right? It's that ascribing too much value to it, making it our passion, our reason for living, making it our only goal instead of people, instead of caring for others. Now, again, continuing this theme that, sometimes we'll tell ourselves people with money are bad and I want to be a good person. So I don't, and we don't think of those two together, but we say, oh, yeah, rich people are bad and they're evil and they do this and they do that. And then we think over on the other side that I want to be a good person. It's important to me to be liked. It's important to me to be seen as good. It's important to me to be seen as moral. But when we tell ourselves both of those things, our brain doesn't separate them. And sure, there are bad people with money. I don't want to list names. I don't want to glorify them, but there's also very good people with money. People that use it for very good means have done things that have significantly added progress and value to society, and they're recognized as such. I mean, I would not be able to be doing this video without a computer that runs Microsoft and Wintel type hardware, but I also have an iPhone. So both Gates and Jobs, and now Tim Cook, War Eagle. Tim Cook's an Auburn guy, by the way. We may have met while I was there. We were there about the same years. But, they can do good things with that money. It's a lot easier. If you ever go to Graceland, which I enjoyed going to, there's walls of all these checks that Elvis Presley would write, right? And yes, he had a lot of money. He got to do some fun things and have Cadillacs and Harleys and airplanes and all that kind of stuff. But he also gave a ton of money away. Danny Thomas becoming successful and being able to help build St. Jude's. Think of all the good that St. Jude's has done. So people with money, there are bad people with money. They're bad people that are broke. They're good people that are broke. They're good people with money. So, try to separate your value to yourself and your self image from the money. That's one reason this is separate. It's not one of the four things. But I don't like using the term net worth when I describe somebody's assets and liabilities. I teach it as financial worth, right? Because my net worth, financial worth, and what I provide for my family, what I provide for society is a part of that, but it's not the only part of that, right? So, our net worth is a dangerous term. It kind of relates to that, right? Because then it says, well, I'm a bad person. Conversely, just being poor does not make you a good person, right? Now, if you've taken a vow of poverty, like I know some men and women who do, I've had some friends who were were priests and were brothers in orders that took vows of poverty. And it was kind of interesting because he was living in base housing, and even the base housing was too nice a house, right? That's different. He's made a choice there to say a vow of poverty is part of how I define the life I want to live. He was a great chaplain, a great priest, a good friend. I mean, so, it didn't make a difference that two of the rooms in his base housing had to actually be sealed shut. It was just kind of interesting, right? But so just saying people with money are bad, we have to separate: are they bad because of who they are? Is the money exacerbating that, making it worse because they have more income? Sure, maybe so. The last thing is there's only so much money to go around. And if I take too big of a slice, that means there's less for other people. And I'm not of that opinion at all. I don't think we should tell ourselves that. We shouldn't say that there's only this much money, because think about using that same analogy, a pie. Well, as you increase the diameter of the diameter increases at whatever that rate is, 1 inch or 1 unit or whatever. The area of the pie actually expands by the square of that number. So the bigger the pie is, the bigger every slice is. Whether your slice is half the pie, which, yeah, that's kind of unfair, but it is what it is. Even if your slice is small, by making the pie bigger, by thinking positively and saying that, there's the speed of money, there's the multiplication of money. It's why it's also bad to hoard money and not put it to work, right? I mean, we need to have some cash, we need to have an emergency fund, but as we put money to work, whether we invest it, whether we put it in the bank at interest so that it can be loaned out, that helps generate more economic activity, and that increases the size of the pie. So even if my slice stays the same percentage wise, every time that pie increases in diameter, the area of my slice gets bigger at a square, which, instead of increasing, 1 to 1, it increases, by that square. So obviously one doesn't work because the square of one is one. But if it increases by 2, that means the area increases by 4. Not 4 times, but 4 units. So, saying there's only so much money to go around is a false view of how money works, because money gets into the economy and has what's called the speed of money. So I hope these 4 things help. This is more about money mindset than money, the nuts and bolts of money. If you're looking for more topics like that, I do have a financial playlist that gets into some specifics. But I wanted just to hit those points today and talk about some of the things that we tell ourselves about money that we should stop telling ourselves. We'll catch you later.